Hello everyone, welcome back to channel again. This is Cloud Institution, the best cloud training institution in Bangalore. Today in this video we're going to see about S3 bucket. Okay, so today we're going to see one of the very interesting topic like what is S3 bucket and how to create S3 bucket. Okay, so first of all we'll see what is S3 bucket. Okay, so Amazon is a simple storage service is what called S3. It's an object storage service that offers a scalable storage for web application, mobile application, and data backup. Okay, so basically, Amazon S3 service is an object level object storage. Okay, what do you mean object storage? So we have so many different types of storages in AWS, right? So object level storage and block level storage and file level storage. Okay, so object level storage is that so all the data, all the files and folders, whichever you are just saving in the S3 bucket can be considered as an object. Okay, so now we have a different types of as I mentioned, we have a different types of storages. So let's say for example EBS volume. Okay, so EBS volume is kind of hard disk, right? So hard disk that can be attached to operating system. Okay, so for now, so S3 bucket is not related to operating systems. Okay, so if you want to compare, the S3 bucket is just like a Google Drive. Okay, so if you wanted to use Google Drive, what do you have to do? You have to access this Google Drive online, and the some you will be allocated to a specific space based on your account, right? Something like that. So there you can upload and download the files and folders and videos and anything you want, right? So the simple storage service is same, the same as a Google Drive. Okay, so let's see how to create a simple S3 bucket and how to upload some files. Okay, so now as you can see here, how to create S3 bucket. If you can see S3 bucket, okay, or what you can do is you can also go here and type S3 and you'll be getting S3 bucket. Okay, now I don't have any buckets already created, so I'm going to create a bucket. Okay, so so we have two types of bucket types. So the bucket type is general purpose or directory. Okay, so this directory is for recommend for low latency use cases. The bucket is only so use only the S3 expert one zone storage class. So which is kind of a pretty expensive. If you wanted to use for the normal purpose for a testing purpose, you use general purpose. Okay, so general purpose S3 bucket is used for all the so all the mid range usage for your storages. Okay, so the bucket name should be unique. Okay, so the bucket name, what do you mean by unique? So because it is a because S3 bucket is kind of a global service, like so even though now it's been attached to the region specific, but your name has to be unique across the world. So if anybody else is created the same name in anybody in the world, then you cannot create the same this same you cannot create the S3 bucket with the same name, right? So now I'm going to create a um, bucket called Cloud Institution Test Bucket. Okay, so this is my bucket name. Okay, bucket is nothing but the storage place where you wanted to create a you will be creating a bucket. You'll be creating a some kind of a specific storage space, for your application. So now next one is ACL is enabled. So ACL is nothing but access control lists. Okay, so what I mean by this one is that disable means so all the objects in this bucket are owned by this account only. Okay, access to this bucket and its objects are specific, using only policies. Okay, specified only using only policies, right? Now in the object is the bucket is owned by other AWS service also. The access to this bucket and this object can be specified using ACS. Okay, so we can choose any one of this. For now I'm giving access to all the other accounts also. Okay, it is depends upon so your own preferences, whatever you wanted to choose, you can just choose it. Okay, now the bucket owner preferred. So bucket object ownership. So who will be the owner for this bucket? So bucket owner preferred or object writer. So the object writer remains the object owner. For example, if somebody is adding some, so the bucket owner means whoever is creating bucket, that particular person or particular account will be the owner of this bucket and the entire bucket and objects, right? So what do you mean by object writer? So if somebody is, for example, if I'm creating a bucket, but some IAM users are uploading the objects into S3 buckets, so that particular person will be the owner for that particular object. Okay, so in that way, so that each individual will be able to manage their own bucket objects. Okay, for now, I'm going to give the bucket owner preferred, so because I'm the bucket owner, so the bucket owner will be able to create, manage, all the objects under the bucket. Okay, next it comes to block public access settings. So what do you mean by block public access settings? So whatever the objects, whatever the objects is being stored inside this, so that determines whether it will be public or private. Okay, so when this box is checked out, so this bucket, the bucket which you are going to create, will become a, the public bucket. Okay, so now I have to acknowledge that, so I want this bucket to be a public bucket, so that everybody will be able to access, all the users will be able to, if, for example, if I'm granting a permission, if all IAM users or anybody would be able to, so log in and access this particular object from here. Or also, if I share, if I share my object URL to some other people, then they should be able to access this particular bucket objects. Okay, that's what it's called. It should be public or private. So now I make it a public. Okay, what is bucket versioning? So bucket versioning is really an interesting topic again. So bucket versioning is nothing but, whenever you're uploading an object, okay, so that object, so it's been written. For example, if you're for example, let me just explain it to you over here now. So for example, this is my file, and you've written one line of file, one line of, uh, the code in this file. Okay, you upload it into the S3 bucket. Now if you want to edit the same bucket again, so if you enable the S3 versioning, if you enable this S3 versioning, what happens is that, so whenever you're adding one more line, so in this file, so what happens is that it'll keep the exact copy of this particular file, and it'll create a new file. It'll create a take a copy and paste over here, so now it'll take a copy and paste. Okay, now as you can see here, so the same content is over available here also, right? What happens is that it'll try to add the more lines over here, so whatever the lines you want to write it here, you'll be able to write it here as well. So now what happens is that, so this particular copy will be a version 1, and this particular copy will be a version 2. Okay, what happened next again? So again, you store your saved your changes into the bucket. Now again, if you want to create a new version, for example, if you want to edit new lines again, then what happens? It take a clone copy of this one, and it paste it over here. Okay, so now all three lines will be already been preserved. Okay, all three lines will be preserved here. Now it will add a new line again, then it will become a version 3. Okay, now whenever you're adding new files, whenever you're updating new, the new lines in the same object, so it'll create a new copy and keep on increasing. So what is the advantage of this one is that you can have a multiple copy of each and every changes. Okay, for example, so for example, if you make some mistakes, if you make some major mistakes over here, if your code is not working, then what you can do is you can go back to the previous version and you can use this file. Okay, so if you don't enable the S3 versioning, what happens? So if you have one copy of your file, okay, so whenever you're adding new lines, so it will be updated in the same file. It won't create a new version of it, right? So this is what called S3 versioning. So what is the advantage of this one, and what is the disadvantage? So advantage of versioning is that, advantage is that, so your file will be always being backed up. Okay, so whenever you're adding some content, it'll be added as a version. Okay, just like a Git repository, right? Just like a GitHub. So whenever you're adding some new files, and if you commit it, so it'll create a new commit, something like that, right? So now what is the disadvantage of this one, versioning? So the disadvantage of versioning is that, so it'll add more storage for your, so for your bucket. Okay, so you have to pay for the, additional S3 bucket unnecessarily. Okay, that is the disadvantage of the S3 bucket. Okay, now what I can do is I can go back, um, I can go back to the, okay, so S3 version is disabled for now. So next one is tags. So default encryption. What do you mean by encryption? So all the files inside inside the S3 bucket by default will be encrypted. Okay, this is what we call as a encryption at rest. So encryption at rest is nothing but, encryption as at rest is nothing but, so whenever you save one file or folder inside the bucket, that bucket will always be, the always be encrypted during when it is there in the bucket itself. Okay, so what is encryption at transit? So encryption at transit is something like, so whenever you're sharing your files with somebody's trying to access it, so it'll be encrypted during the transaction of that particular, the particular period when the file has been transferred. Okay, that's what called encryption at transit. So this can be a very, very important question, that, so what is encryption at rest and encryption at transit? Okay, now we have different types of, the encryption method is there, server-side encryption. So what happens is that even Amazon itself will try to create S3, so S3 managed keys, and then it will encrypt it himself. Okay, so now what happens, server-side encryption with a AWS key management service. Okay, we can also allow, you know um, the AWS to be able to, so the encrypt for the KMS key. The KMS service is the another services, so we can use that particular KMS key as well. Okay, so the dual layer server-side encryption with the KMS key also can be enabled. Okay, so we are going to see in the future session that, how to enable the KMS key for S3 bucket and how to use it. All right, so now for now we can we can go and create a bucket. All right, so my bucket is created. As you can see here, this is my bucket. So for now I'm going to upload some files, so I'm going to upload, some images or some files, inside this. Okay, so I'm going to type like images. um, okay, so I'm going to download some images from the cloud institution itself. Okay, this is our cloud institution logo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to download. Okay, I'm going to save images. Okay, it's the cloud institution. Okay, I'm just saving under downloads. Okay, so what I've done is that I've downloaded one image. Okay, I'm going to upload it. I'm going to upload it and add files or add folder. You can also create a files or a folder. So I'm going to add files and under downloads, and I'm going to choose this one. Okay, the cloud institution logo is what I just chosen. Okay, so now as you can see here, I've just uploaded it. Okay, I can close it now. Now as you can see here, I have a bucket, and inside the bucket I have one object is being uploaded. This is called the cloud institution logo, right? Now as you can see here, what I can do is, if you want to access my object, whatever I've been used, I have to copy this URL link, then I'll be pasting it over here. Okay, as you can see here, access is denied. So even though we have granted the public access to the bucket itself, still we are not able to access the object inside that one, right? So now what you have to do, we have to go and click on permissions. Okay, so now we have to click on edit. Okay, so for everyone we'll be having a read access, object ACL, and then objects we can just give read access. Okay, so now I'm saving the changes. Right, so now what happens, I've given a permission for a public to be able to access this particular URL. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, access this again. So now I'll be able to, get this one. So what you can do is you can also download this. Okay, so cloud institution logo one will be able to download, or if you want to share this particular URL to with your friends or anybody, so you'll be able to share with this particular link itself. If you can copy and paste to your friends, then they should be able to access it. Okay, so now similarly you can also create a S3 bucket versioning, S3 bucket with the folders. Again, you can upload, some more files, so inside the folder itself. Okay, we can do all this stuff. Right, hope you understand this particular question, how to create a bucket and what are the things you can do with the S3 bucket, right? So in the future sessions we are going to see a lot of other things about S3 buckets and how to access it. Okay, So hope you understand this video, guys, and thank you so much for watching this video. And if you like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Okay, so if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please stay tuned, guys, and I'll be posting a lot of new videos like this. Okay, thank you and see you again.